Okay.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to this week's Writers Chat. This is the place where people like to gather, writers like to gather together, and we share our writing and talk about writing for writers and by writers. So we're really glad to have everybody with us. We had some technical problems to get started today, so we're all kind of giggling and laughing a little bit about that. So you must really want to be here, so I sure appreciate it. My name is Jean Wise. I'm one of the co-hosts, and we're really glad to see everybody today. And I'm going to turn it over to my other co-host, Johnnie Alexander, and she's going to introduce our guest today and our topic for today. So take it away, Johnnie.
All right, we're going to be talking about collaborative indie publishing, which I think seems to be the wave of the future, and it's kind of cool to be on the beginning parts of that. So my guests today are Stacy Monson and Brenda Anderson, who both have experience with that. And I'm just going to tell you a little bit about both of them. Brenda writes gritty and authentic life-affirming fiction. She's a member of the American Christian Fiction Writers and past president of the ACFW Minnesota chapter, which is known as MN Nice, which I love that name. And they were the 2016 ACFW Chapter of the Year, which is a great honor. When Brenda isn't reading or writing, she loves music, theater, roller coasters, and baseball. Go Twins. And she loves watching movies with her family. She lives in Minneapolis with her, the Minneapolis area with her husband of 30 years. There are 3 children and 1 sassy cat. Stacy is the award-winning author of the Chain of Lakes series, including Shattered Image, Dance of Grace, and The Color of Truth, and also another novel called Open Circle. Her stories reveal an extraordinary God at work in ordinary life. She's also an active member of American Christian Fiction Writers and the Minnesota Christian Writers Guild. She lives in the Twin Cities, the wife, I love this, the wife of a juggling, unicycling, recently retired physical ed teacher, mom to 2 amazing kids, 2 wonderful in-law kids, and a proud grandma of 4 and counting grands. Stacy, and I've got to tell this story too, because God is so wonderful, and we talk about going to writers' conferences and meeting people and connecting with people, and that is how Stacy and I met. And and it just goes back that if Stacy and I had not met at ACFW, I think it was back in 2011, we would not be here today. They would not be our guests today. I wouldn't be part of the Mosaic Collection today. So, I mean, maybe, but but this is where it began. Stacy and I were both finalists for the My Book Therapy Fraser contest. And the host of that contest, Susan May Warren, was having a pizza party for the finalists. And Stacy and I stood next to each other in line and got to chatting. And she is so funny and just always has me laughing. And can I tell about your story?
Sure.
She was pitching a story about a one-legged dancer, and everybody she pitched it to would go, huh?
Yeah. You can't do that.
We were laughing about that. And then a couple years later, when we were both at ACFW again, and we were both presidents, or I think I was the vice president of my chapter and she was president, and we had a president's meeting, and I was there on behalf of my president, and I said, I remember you, and we got to talking again, and we just sort of stayed in touch off and on after that. So anyway, that's how it all begins. You never know who you're going to meet at a writer's conference and what's going to happen in the future because of that meeting. So, but we're here today to talk about collaborative indie publishing. And I think what I'd like to do, Brenda, start with you, because I know that even before the Mosaic Collection, you had some experience and still do with the Potter's House book. So do you want to just kind of start talking about that, and then we'll move into the Mosaic Collection and what you two want to share about collaborative indie publishing?
Okay. Oh gosh, it was probably about 2 years ago I was invited to join a new collaborative group put together by Juliet Duncan called the Potter's House Group. And they said we would release a novella, so between 30 and 55,000 words, one person in our collaboration would release every 2 to 3 weeks. So, and the purpose of it is, or a big purpose of it is to share the marketing, so that we're, there were 7 of us at first, so it's not just me doing the marketing for my book. I have 6 other people also doing the marketing, so it just sort of builds and feeds on that. And it's also as a Christian group, so it's we're just sharing hope, as a group. So that's fun.
Someone asked about actually defining collaborative indie publishing. How would you define that term?
Good question.
Yeah.
I would define it as just a group of authors working together. In the Potter's House group, where we tell stories of I can't remember the tagline now, but it's hope, and it's all themed around God working in our lives, like the potter molding our lives. So each book has to have something thematic like that. So yeah, it's just working together with a common theme, common, the branding should be similar, but with Potter's House and with Mosaic, each book is a standalone. So you don't, at least I know some collaboratives, they have more commonalities, but in Potter's House and Mosaic, you can read any book in any order, or you don't have to read all the books. So does that help?
Yes, I think so. Yeah, that's great way to define it. Rhonda's asking, do we all need to write the same genre to collaborate? And how do you find other authors? So let's take that in 2 different things. So let's talk about first the genre, and we talk about that in the Potter's House, and then Stacy, we'll have you start talking about Mosaic Collection and what we're doing.
Right. In the Potter's House, it all depends upon how you define your collaboration. So in the Potter's House, it's all contemporary. Everyone has elements of romance. There's a lot of people are romance, but sometimes it's women's fiction with elements of romance. And really that's, our parameters. So it all depends upon how your group defines what you want to do. So you could start a historical line and define your, specific parameters from that. And I think that helps too. If you have some commonalities, it helps, grab your readers, so that you do have a market that you are going to.
Yeah. So Stacy, how did the Mosaic Collection come about? Was that your idea, Brenda's idea, both of yours idea?
Stacy's. I invited myself in.
We had a couple years ago, well, a year and a half or whatever, a couple of local Minneapolis and Rochester writers were talking about, we love to write, we hate to market, and which is probably true for all of us. I don't want to market. And so we got to talking about, well, if we form a group, that we all, at that point, we were all writing contemporary, and it's like, well, we could promote each other's. So then it was like, okay, well, Brenda and I and Joy DeCoke and Barbara Brink started chatting, and we immediately brought in Johnnie and said, would you be interested? And so it kind of started with the group of us going, okay, if we were to do this, what would it look like? How do you run something like this long term, as opposed to just putting out a collection of books? And we see that a lot, where people, a group of writers will all write a romance and then they'll do a box set. We wanted this to be a more of a long-term commitment, at least a year at a time. So we tried to be really clear that, there's an out, you're not signing on for the rest of your life. But how do we define what this would look like? And we really didn't know if this was going to take off or not, because we didn't know who else we'd have. It was like, okay, well, let's ask Karen Kingsbury. Okay, well, that probably wasn't going to fly. So how do we? And we started throwing out names, and Regina is in our group, and so it was like that, kind of putting it out there and saying, this is our plan. This is what we hope. We keep just bringing it back to God, saying, if this is going to fly, you got to provide the authors and the right mix of authors. We don't want to be, fighting over covers or whatever. It needs to be a mix of people that work well together. And Regina popped up, and Barbara, who ended up having some family things and couldn't stay in the collection, brought in Sarah Davison, who's in Canada. Well, then Sarah knew some other Canadian writers, and so it was really rather amazing to watch God put it together. And so at this point, we have 4 Canadians, a South African, and the rest of us are kind of spread across the U.S. And so we were Zooming before it was cool, because that was the only way we could all talk to each other.
Yeah.
And it just kind of built piece by piece. We're like, okay, but we need somebody to run it. Who's going to run it? And we ended up hiring my daughter, which was kind of a funny thing to say. I do have this daughter she loves doing that stuff.
She's amazing.
But I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if you'll like her or not. And she's been our virtual assistant, and it's been great. So that was where it started. And then we've kind of watched God do a lot of it as it's grown.
Well, we have a lot of questions, but I will promise I'll get to all of them, but I kind of want to give a little bit more background first about what we're doing. So Stacy's was the first book to come out that we released, and Brenda has copies of all the books, I think, except mine, because that print edition isn't ready. But yeah, here's Stacy's. When did it come out? In July of last year?
August. Came out in August, and you want to talk about pressure.
Yeah, can you show it again, okay. Brenda? Put it back up again.
If this thing stinks, nobody will read the rest of the books. So
When Mountains Sing. Yeah, we were so excited about it. And there is that pressure, I will say, because I think mine was we did a short story collection, so mine was the 9th novel, but the 10th book that we put out. And it was, I was having a crisis, and Brenda and Stacy know this, because I actually talked to them about it. I said, I don't know what story to write, because part of it was I was so afraid that my story would stink and no one would want to read it. And it's not reflecting now just on me, it's reflecting on the collection. And you just don't want that to happen. And I was having a little mini breakdown, and they had to sort of say, it's okay. It's okay. So someone asked about branding. So if you want to show like 2 or 3 of the covers, Brenda, and show how we are branding the covers so that they look similar without being similar.
All right. Well, here I'll find. I don't have yours yet, Johnny.
Mine's not printed yet, but it's coming.
Here's Sarah Davison's and Stacy's. So it's a lot is in the
Brenda's,
the logo,
and Angela's.
A couple more.
Yeah. So the logo, but the cover really represents that book.
Okay.
Not
does the same person do it, or do you figure out your logo and then everybody does their own cover and then you just
the logo's the same. I don't know how easy it is to see it, but it is this little mosaic kind of thing. So the banner is across every single book. That banner is. But we'll talk about the covers, about hiring covers.
Well, it started with Brenda, who had George Weiss doing covers, and then I had George redo the covers to my first series, and he's a kind of a crazy guy. All of us creative people, you have to admit, we're all just a little off kilter. And he's been a riot to work with and really has a good eye for covers. And so that was part of it. At the beginning, we actually developed a contract so that we spelled out things. You know, we're all responsible to cross market. We each have certain Facebook groups that we each market to. So there aren't 10 of us marketing to one group and nobody hitting other markets. And then another piece was we would, at least for the first year, have our covers all done by the same designer. And now that's becoming a little more fluid because we added Marion, who does beautiful covers.
Yes.
And so now it's a little more collaborative, I think.
Yeah, Marion Yeckerman, she's from South Africa, and she does do beautiful covers. Yeah, so she can do her own. So, and now we're using Rosanna White, who designed my cover, and I think maybe a couple of the covers before me as well. So that is part of our contract. I mean, there's some expenses involved. Camry is a blessing. She created our website. She runs our authors. Well, she controls us in our authors Facebook group. She has a readers group. She helps us with our launch team. She creates graphics for us. And
we pay her. I mean, she's a paid.
And a newsletter. She does a newsletter. That
she keeps us organized.
She does, yes. Deadlines, all this kind of thing. The checklist, like there's a pre-launch checklist, which was so helpful. And especially because I've only done indie publishing once and never at this scale. So it was so helpful to have that and to have the experience of people like Brenda and Stacy who have done it and know what they're doing, and to be able to answer questions like that. But yeah, going back to the money, we each pay Camry every month, and then of course we pay for our covers, and that we don't say you have to pay for an editor. You are expected to have your manuscript professionally edited. So if you've got a deal with someone where you're bartering, that's fine, but it has to be done. It can't just be you doing it. So we've got these certain kinds of things.
You still have a lot of those costs if you were indie publishing on your own too. So, you know, other than maybe the extra website, but you might do something creative like that. So it really isn't out of the ballpark, I wouldn't think.
No,
it's not.
No, it's not.
We're mainly paying for somebody to keep us organized. And I, you know, if I hadn't given birth to her, I think she was adopted, because that is not my strength. And so, and now she's pregnant with her 5th child, and we're selling our house. Brenda's selling her house. Camry's selling her house, and she's just marching along and keeps all the, you know, we tend to be these little chickens that are off running, doing things. And she says, no, now you're on for the readers group. You're on for the, so that's, and that's, to me, really the only additional cost is paying for a VA, and I'd be paying a lot more than this little monthly fee. So
yeah, she's worth it, though. She truly is. It's really great to have somebody like that with her creative eye and her organization that can do all these different things.
Yeah, and I think that's an important piece of, if you want to start a collaboration, is you need that organizer. I know with the Potter's House, we have our VA who does the same thing as Camry does, and it keeps everybody on the same page, keeps it all organized, and it makes it go so much more smoothly.
And I guess let's talk about this too. I mean, so we've had different ideas, and Camry has lots of ideas, but I think I'm not coming up with an example right off the top of my head, but it seems like there are things that we tried to do and they didn't quite work out, and that was okay. It's like, okay, we tried that. Like we tried to do a lot of Facebook live things together, and there were technical issues and that kind of thing. But now one of us takes over the readers group every week. And sometimes it's Camry, but we take turns doing that too. And that way we're interacting with the readers, and that readers group has certainly grown, and they're very supportive of our launches. And and joining our individual launch teams as well. So that's really good. Okay, what else? I'm going to look for some questions here because I know there are some. What else would you like to say about working together as a group and some of the benefits or maybe even some of the pitfalls that you might need to work through?
I think one of the things we've all been surprised by is the community that developed. And like I said, most of us didn't know each other. And it'd be nice to have Regina pop in here. And
she should come in. We should have had her on. Regina, come on in if you want to, please.
We've all been kind of amazed at, you look fine.
We all have COVID hair, so.
I know, don't we do that? But we've
counting
really
on staying muted the whole time.
We've enjoyed the friendships that have developed. I didn't know Marion, and we've gotten a chance to Zoom together. We were, sadly enough, all going to meet at Lorna's cabin next month in a couple hours north of Minneapolis here, which is kind of amazingly more central. Works for me. But to get to know each other, and actually in the same place and in person, sadly that isn't working. But I think everybody at some point has said, I am so appreciative of having this community of women. And that's one thing, we've kept it to women. We've gone back and forth about inviting men in, and that we're not against it, but it just has worked to be a group of women writers. But to have people to go to with prayer requests, with family issues, with writing questions, we throw blurbs out and say, look, this is a mess, and everybody jumps in and helps. And so you have, it is a collaboration of writing, but also of life. And that, I don't think we expected that.
Yeah,
exactly.
True.
Well said.
How many are in the group? And I don't honestly know.
We there are 11 of us. 10 of us. 11 of us.
That's what I'm thinking too.
Plus Camry, right?
Plus Camry.
Yeah. And does everyone contribute to every collective title?
Say that again?
Does everyone contribute to every collective title?
No. You like the anthology?
The anthologies, yeah.
Yep.
Oh. Nope.
No.
Yeah, the Christmas had how many? Was it 8 or
9?
9? And the summer one coming out has 7.
That's coming out in June. Yeah.
Yep.
Because some people, it just isn't working. Everybody's got other writing projects going on and things, and people have just said, I'd love to be part of it, cannot pull it off now. And that's fine. That was never a requirement. And we thought, whoever wants, as long as we had 3 or 4, we figured it's kind of hard to have an anthology of like 2. So, we thought, okay, at least half the group wants to do it, we'll do it. And so those, both the Christmas and the summer ones, have been kind of on the fly.
Yeah.
Who wants to do it and jump in?
And then after we've sort of done it backwards, we have to, now that we've done a couple, we're saying, okay, now we need to do it the front way. We've all written our stories, and then we've gotten together and said, oh, what should we title this? And now we should write our blurb. So and
should we have a theme? And
come up with a theme. Take 7 stories and come up with a theme from all those when we didn't, collaborate in the beginning. So, that's one of the things we've learned is that okay, we have to start. We have to have a theme first, and start here, and then write our stories.
We're really lenient too on word count. I think in the Christmas anthology, like my story was right at 5,000, someone else's was right at 5,000, and then we had 5,000 words, but then we had some that were
mine was 17, I think.
17 to 20,000. And some of the stories, I know Stacy's story was kind of a follow-up to the novel that she had put out. So several of them were connected to characters that either were coming out or had been out.
Mine was like a introduction.
Yes, yours was an introduction. So, you know, there's that too. And then I think the same thing is holding true with the one coming out next month, which is called Before Summer's End. So, and it's got a lovely cover on it too. Does the group have a designated leader, and how do you handle differences of opinion?
Well, our VA is kind of our leader. We do whatever she tells us.
She's our herder.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
I think we just work through the differences. I mean,
Yeah.
we've had some, well, I don't think I love that. Well, you know, we've thrown ideas out, and then I think all of us have said, but I'll go with the consensus.
Right.
And two, those of us who, you know, initially started the group to sort of have the final say. You know, if there isn't, if things are sort of getting muddy, you know, we'll just sort of say, okay, this is it. But it hasn't been that bad. It's surprising, you know, and because our stories and our talents and our styles are so diverse, it's interesting that we can come together at all. And that's a God thing right there, that, you know, we can come together and be a group. But I also like that diversity and the in the group, so that each book is so different. You know, you go from one book to the next, and it's a different style, a different tone, and it's fun.
It really is. And yeah, we have suspense, we have contemporary romance, we have women's fiction, I suppose. And you know, it's been really cool to see the different stories. And we've got series within the collection. Like Stacy's was the first book in a series, mine's the first book in the series. Brenda,
Sarah's.
Sarah's is. So and then one of the books, The Red Journal, is very literary.
Yes.
Very, and it's so well written, such a good story. So that's really great too to have that.
And I think there was something.
Camry.
Oh, she did pop in.
We're talking about you. This is our fabulous VA who just does it all.
Does all,
Was
including
not prepared to be here, so if all of a sudden there are children climbing on her.
no, they're downstairs. They're watching a movie, and I was deep cleaning the couch, and my machine wasn't working. So I'm happy to take a break.
Yeah, that's fun. That's fun. I love all the questions. I know I haven't even reached them all yet. So here's thank you. Isabel said she thought Mosaic to be a traditional publisher. No, it's not. It's a bunch of independent publishers, but because of Camry and because of our branding and because of the logo and the Mosaic banners, I think that just it makes it look very, very professional. So Rhonda wants to know if we work with an established indie publisher. No, we're each our own separate self-publishing company. Mine is called Willow, so I have my little logo will be on the spine of my book. Brenda, I know, has a little logo on the spine of her book. Maybe you ladies do.
I don't know if you can see it.
But yeah.
Vivint Press.
Yep.
Yes.
So all my books have that.
Mine is His Image Publications.
Let's see.
Regina?
I don't know yet.
So jump in if anybody has ideas for her.
Yeah.
And it's not even necessary. It's just, you know, for me, it was something I wanted to do, is create my own imprint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have to.
I'd like to do that too. Hey, I do have ISBN codes though.
Oh, good.
Yay!
Good.
We each
That's
have to get
important.
our own ISBNs, which is
Yes.
that little thing that goes on the barcode at the back.
Now I just have to finish the book.
When
Please
did
do.
yours come out?
August.
Okay.
Okay.
Not too
You
Chop,
bad.
got
chop.
time.
Yeah.
You're doing fine.
Well, I asked her for her first chapter.
Yeah.
Because the first
I just had to.
shows.
Yeah.
Yep, that'll go in the back of Eleanor's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I need to finish the book so that the first chapter will match the last chapter. So
Yes.
no pressure, you know.
I think that part of being in a collaboration like this has, at least for me, and I think it's probably true for the rest of the group, and we alluded to it a little bit about, if it sucks, it's going to reflect on everybody. And I think it's making us up our game a little bit, knowing that it's not just me, which it had been for my first 4 books. It's hard to stay motivated when you're indie published, and to have all of us with our names attached to each other through this collection, it makes you kind of step up your game and think, okay, first of all, I don't want to disappoint the others in this group. And even though we write very differently, we really want each other to like the book, but also to know that if my book tanks, that's going to affect the next book in the series, or from then on. Someone may say, I'm not going to read these books because they're not well done. So I think part of being in a collaborative group, whether it's 10 or 11 or 5, it raises the bar, and that has been good for me.
Yeah, I agree. We're asked, is there a checklist or guide somewhere to creating a collaborative publishing group? And I'm going to let Camry answer that question.
It has 700 pages, and everyone's expected to read it.
Guess who came up with the checklist?
It wasn't us.
A disclaimer, I told you you didn't have to read the whole thing in one sitting. Chapters are very clearly labeled.
We didn't.
So, yes, there is one inside of Mosaic, and when we developed it in October, I think, I chatted with some of you about the prospect of making it more generic, more of a template for other people who wanted to start something like this themselves. And then the holidays, and then first trimester pregnancy, and now moving. So I haven't gotten that far, but there is, something exists. And if you're interested, I would love to send it over to you so you can see what it looks like, and use what exists as the Mosaic guide to spur something for yourself, or I'll add it to my list and it'll be something that I'll work on this summer, and it can be, I don't know. Are there people who want it? Would that be actually helpful? Christy says yes.
Yeah, Christy's already waving her hand.
Already, yeah. So it exists. Johnnie, do you have Christy's contact information?
I do.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, Christy, I will send you an email then with the guide as it currently is, and you can take a look at it and see if it's helpful for you.
I sure do.
I think one of our goals has been, not a goal, but as we've gone along, we've talked about, is this proprietary stuff, or do we want to encourage other groups to do something similar? And so we've talked about sharing. This is how Mosaic runs it. Now, if you want to start a group, here we're happy to share what's worked for us, but odds are it'll end up being tweaked for whatever your group looks like. So yeah, I think we're happy to share what we've learned so far, and to encourage other people to form groups.
Who did I talk to? Was it Carrie at Just Read? And somebody else from Bloom of the Tall Poppy Writers, and they both said there aren't a whole lot of groups like this that we know of. There may be some out there, but they're not making a lot of noise yet. But I think the reader interest is there, and now it's just a matter of how do we connect the readers with this godly faith-based fiction. sort of, is the right word, is the right phrase, in competition with the bigger publishing houses or the traditional publishing houses, or is it just alongside them?
I think alongside.
That makes, yeah, I think that fits
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
You know, it just adds more flavor and variety to the traditional publishing houses.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think writing this way too, with any indie project, you're able to write the story you want, where sometimes, you know, publishers do have certain expectations, and we do too. I mean, because we are writing inspirational fiction, but we can choose how much, I hate to even use this word, but preachiness there is to it, because we really don't want any preachiness at all, right? But you know, there is a spectrum of that where it's, you know, very, very strong Christian based, or more just sort of on that clean and wholesome level, you know, that people are wanting too. And we have the freedom to write anywhere on that spectrum that we want. You know, I was really concerned when I was writing my story, because my heroine not only isn't she a Christian, she's a thief. I mean, she is a thief, and she's still a thief at the end of the story, spoiler alert. But you know, she's beginning this journey, and it's just the beginning of it for her. And hopefully there'll be more stories, and we'll see more of that. And so I don't know that a traditional publisher would have liked that kind of character. They may have, but I don't know that they would have. But I was able to write her this way, you know, and this is who she is. So that was really, that freedom was kind of, was nice too.
One of the gals put out, we have a Facebook group just for the authors, obviously, that we can ask questions and share our stinky blurbs and things. And but one of the gals said, I need to put, like, you know, a 4-letter word in here. What do you guys think? And so we all discussed that. And that's one of the good things about, I mean, there are a lot, I think, about indie publishing, is you can make the book the way you feel it needs to be written. I think we're very careful about, we follow pretty much the same guidelines about sex and profanity and violence and whatever. That's not what our readers want to read. But Brenda, can I tell that story?
You can tell.
It still makes me laugh. Back
Our
when
recording, just remember.
well, back when we were looking at, both of us were looking for agents, and and all of a sudden at one point she had 3 different agencies looking at her books, and but the one said, and it so worked in the story. And keep in mind, Brenda's tagline is gritty, but not gritty as in gratuitous or anything.
Right.
Well, they had a problem because one, her heroine smoked, and she didn't want to smoke. I mean, this was just like her go-to thing, and she was trying very hard to break this terrible habit that she had. But when she was stressed, she smoked. And which she smoked like twice in the whole book or something.
Yeah, probably.
But the one agent said, well, you know, we just can't include that. You can't have that because Christians don't smoke. And Brenda and I looked at each other like, well, you've never been to my church, because people come and sit down next to me, and sometimes you're like, oh, baby. What? You know, and I get it, that, I mean, there are some parts of the reader population that just, they don't want to read that. Well, so then I mean, we got just hysterical, because the woman's like, well, it could be fast food. Well, you can't run to the underwear drawer and pull out a hamburger. I mean, it just doesn't work. So it was like, okay, never mind.
Right. And if her habit was chocolate, I mean, then we'd have an obesity problem too. And
That's
that
a
would
whole different one.
be a whole different story. So
A very different story.
And that was an issue that she dealt with in the book, you know, so it wasn't glorifying it. It wasn't whatever. It was just an issue. And like, gee, I mean, how many of women are on this page? And we probably all have some issues. I don't know. Mine might be chocolate. But it was just that idea that it's like, okay, I need to tell this story the way it needs to be told, and not, neaten it up in a little bow that nobody can relate to. So
Several people asked in the chat about marketing. Have you
Yes.
seen the effect, and how has it affected your marketing? I'm just curious about that, both as an author and maybe in the results of sales.
I've definitely seen a bump in if you're looking at sales or return on investment. Definitely, I've seen a bump, and the number of readers, the different readers that are coming, reading my books because they've read Stacy's or Johnnie's or Regina's or anybody else's. We're also gleaning from all of their readership too. So that's a big bonus, and that's the easy marketing part of the group, is that we are benefiting from everybody else's established readership.
And it can only grow, I think, is the thing. I mean, we now have 10 books out. We've got books coming out every month from, up through all next year, I think, or close to it. We've already got people signed up. We are starting a historical line starting next year, putting out a historical like once every other month while we're developing those authors. So far, and I think we probably will stick to this, the authors in our group have to be established authors. They don't have to be traditionally published. They can have been indie published, but they do have to have had some experience. I'm right in that, correct? That everybody has some experience. I want you guys to come back on, and we've only got about 5 more minutes. Though we did get a late start, didn't we? But yeah, I'll have you guys come back on.
And if you can't get on, let us know in the chat and we'll let you in. Because sometimes if we take you off, you can't get back on. So I'll watch that, Johnnie, and you can go ahead.
Thank you. One more question then, as you guys are coming on. Legal papers to submit to get a self-publishing company name. I think that varies by state. All I had to do was send in a doing business as. It cost $25 here in the state of Oklahoma. So it was a very simple thing to do, but it does help to have that name, because when I bought my ISBNs, I did have to put that name then when I set up my account. If you don't do that, I believe then if you're going through Amazon, that they just call it something like Amazon services or something. So it is best if you can have a name there that's you or your own. So but yeah,
we don't have
a whole big thing.
Yeah, and we don't have legal papers for our group.
No.
I mean, we're just people that have come together.
We signed a statement of faith, I believe.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but that's been it. So yeah, everybody come back on. We've been asked if we can put the All Things Mosaic in our Writers Chat member page, and I think that we could do that. That's fine. So we will be doing that. I'm just going through. Thank you for those of you who bought The Mischief Thief. I really appreciate it. Yeah, she's a great character. She's a lot of fun. Okay. Anybody else have any questions? And why is nobody else coming back on?
I don't know why they're not coming back on.
Where are you guys?
Somebody did ask, how do you decide the order of books, like which book's next and all that?
Oh, we just sign up.
Yeah. It's like, well, my next one, I don't have time to get it out until like November of 21, so that's what I'm signing up for.
Yeah, so we have a sign-up sheet, and if there's an open month, you can grab it. Once it's taken, you just have to go to the next one. So yeah,
it depends on everybody's schedule, so we work it out somehow.
Do you think it would work for a collection of nonfiction?
That's a good question, and I don't know. I think there would have to be some maybe overriding theme or something, but you could probably come up with a broad enough theme to
spiritual practices, prayer.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Camry, you for hire for another group?
What do you need? That is the question. I'm supposed to be tweaking the Mosaic guide, so so that it reflects the changes that we've taken on for the spring. And in the process of doing that, I figure I'll pull out a lot of the Mosaic specific instructions, but leave it as a baseline so that if people are interested in trying to implement it, at the very least, if I'm not working with your group, I don't know that I could. I love the idea. So there is something we can put in your hands if it's not actually a person from Mosaic to kind of walk you through it. Or we could do some kind of like a launch kickoff, and then we can walk you up to the process of launch and then answer questions. And everybody in Mosaic now is so knowledgeable about the process.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not just me that could be answering questions. There are all sorts of us that could.
It would be a great course to put together.
It would be. You could probably sell it like on Skillshare or one of those Teachable or one of those things. You really could on that way. Johnnie, we probably should wrap up the video and invite everybody back in. Yeah.
Let's do
I
that.
had a quick question.
Yes.
What does it cost per author to be part of the group in the club? Because I know each of you are your own indie publisher company, but in order to pay for the assistant and any other marketing or whatever you do as a group, how much is it per author?
It really sort of depends upon other variables. The cover designer, I believe they're, because we're using the same one, it's around $300, which is a really, really good price for a good cover designer.
For a really good cover.
Yeah. And then there's formatting. Some of us, I do my own formatting, so I don't pay for that, but others pay for formatting, and that, I think that runs around $100. Again, that depends upon who you go with.
Yeah.
Then there's editing, the all-important editing. And editing prices really run the gamut of, from 400 up to 4,000. So it depends on who you find, and, you make use of beta readers and author friends and stuff like that.
And all of us pay the VA $30 a month.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so if we've decided, like, if we're just, we're working with Carrie, is it just read or just read? I have more trouble with that.
I don't know, but there's no S on the end of it. That I know.
Just read. Okay.
Carrie Booth Schmidt. She's talking about Carrie Booth Schmidt, who has been on here. We've had her as a guest on Writers Chat, so we work with her. Yeah, let's talk about that. Go ahead, Stacy, just real briefly.
Well, we've done group things with her, and then it costs like $10 a person or something. I mean, she's really worked with us in a big group cost. Okay, if I do this many weeks, and she's really had to kind of figure it out. She and Camry, she said, I've never done a group this big before, but then it costs us like $10, and it might be highlighting one author, but we managed to get everybody else's names in there, somehow as part of the Mosaic Collection of these other authors.
And we've done some advertising together. We did Southern Writer Magazine, and those of us who were wanting to be in the magazine, we just split the cost between us for an ad. And so that was, so you're not required. We don't require people to, it's just if you want to. So that's how it do. So thank you, Stacy and Brenda and Regina and Camry. Thank you all for coming in and talking about this. This has been so much fun. Really appreciate it. I do not know what's going on next week. Is Melissa here?
But I don't know anything about it. It's called
Melissa. She's going to tell us.
Melissa, tell us, please. Tell us what it is.
It's called You, the Protagonist, Developing Your Author Brand. Caroline George is going to come and speak to us, and I believe that Bethany will be heading that one up, but she had to jump out. So, I don't know the details, but obviously developing your author brand.
Great.
Branding and marketing are always popular topics here, so that should be good. I just want to thank you guys too. I think this is a wonderfully creative idea. It follows what our philosophy here at Writers Chat. We help each other as writers, and I love the Christian faith based to that anyway too. So congratulations, you guys. Congratulations.
Thanks for having us.
Thank
Yes,
you. Thank you. And Johnnie, we'll let you wrap things up and we'll see everybody next week.
All right. Well, thanks everybody, and
Bye-bye.
be sure to watch the replay if you weren't here live. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.